I'm Sheila Brummer with Siouxland Public Media News. Around 100 people gathered in downtown Sioux City Thursday afternoon to bring awareness to the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives. The event was organized in part by the Great Plains Action Society, a group that fights for social justice. Sunrose Iron Shell is part of the movement.
It's all about being seen, but because society has forgotten us, we are hunted, and we've been hunted for the past 500 years.
Joining the event, local law enforcement leaders, including Sioux City Police Chief Rex Mueller.
We all have the same goals. We want to find those people who are missing, and we want to bring justice to the families who have lost loved ones, like Terry McCauley.
Terry McCauley was murdered in 1983. So far, no arrests have been made in her case. Several in attendance held signs with her image, including her son Nathaniel McCauley of Omaha, who was only a toddler at the time of the killing.
It's a beautiful thing, man. I thought I'd never see it. I love it. Love it for everybody. Love it for the community. Love it for me, my family, and everybody here. We took it really hard. Why nothing to us?
Even though Nathaniel McCauley was too young to remember his mother, she died when he was a toddler, he does not want the community to forget about her unsolved death.
She loved us. You know, she loved people. She was easy to get along with, and just basically wanted to live a full life, you know, and that never took place. That never happened for her.
Living without his mother, McCauley felt a void.
I just turned to drugs and alcohol, you know what I mean? It was like the mess just took that empty feeling away from, you know, losing my mom. Like it was just like a hole in my, I don't know how you want to call it, just like an emptiness that I felt with her not being there and not really having anybody. My father was in prison basically our whole life, and my grandma raised us the best she could, but we just, you know what I mean, we were just two young kids without a mom and without a dad, and it was just hard for us, you know.
What did she want you to know about your mother?
That she was a good girl. She was a little rebellious, but you know what I mean, she was young. She had us when she was young, but she tried her best to raise us as a young kid.
Terry McCauley was only 18 in the fall of 1983 when she did not return home after a night out with friends. They last saw her get into a vehicle near a bar on the west side of the city. Several days later, her body was found miles away in a wooded area off of Floyd Boulevard.
This lady needs justice. Her family needs justice.
Retired Police Sergeant Tony Sunclade served in the Detective Bureau during the era of Terry McCauley's murder.
Weeks later, I was involved in a case where an individual fired a shotgun into a house where his ex-girlfriend was living. It was the same type of shotgun, same kind of rounds that was used in this, and just one thing led to another, and I started piecing stuff together, and it sounded like, hey, maybe this guy is good for the Terry McCauley homicide.
Do you believe beyond a doubt that this person did not only the shooting that you first investigated, but also murdered Terry McCauley?
I have no doubt.
Why isn't he arrested? What is going on here, do you think?
The county attorney's office decided that there was not enough evidence. Period.
You saw the evidence. Do you think there was enough evidence?
Absolutely. There was enough evidence to take this to a grand jury, and I'm sure there would have been an indictment.
This week on The Exchange, we explore the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women with local and regional advocates.
Seek out those Native American communities within your communities and see what you can do to help.
Plus, hear an update on a Sioux City murder involving a member of the Omaha tribe of Nebraska, killed almost 40 years ago.
Just keep looking, never stop.
The life and death of Terry McCauley and the new push to bring a suspect to justice.
I truly believe that he is the one that did it.
Today we're focusing on an issue impacting the Siouxland community.
May 5th is National Missing and Murdered Women and Girls Awareness Day.
Later, we'll explore enforcement by talking to a retired FBI agent who spent a large part of his career working in Indian country.
We're going to start our conversation today with two advocates. We're excited to have them here. And they're both affiliated with the Great Plains Action Society. Tricia Ettringer is Operations and Missing and Murdered Relations Director for the Great Plains Society. Thank you for being here. Also, board member for the Society, Karen Mackey. thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You know, Trish, we talk about the whole issue of missing and murdered women and young people. This is a huge issue, right, for Indian country.
It is. This has been going on since our first contact with settlers, basically, and it just kind of perpetuated throughout the centuries. And we see this, in Hollywood videos, media, even music. So yes, this has been an age-old epidemic that has been brought upon our people.
I am a Winnebago Shonge Wakikanok, which in English it would translate to queer trans man.
Earlier this month, Lemire took to TikTok over concerns a majority of the 9-member Winnebago Tribal Council abused sovereign rights.
I ended up making a video about it, and that has garnered 1 million views.
And only 4 people on our council defended LGBTQ natives in our tribe. There were even multiple homophobic comments made during the council meeting when deciding whether or not we should ban gay marriage.
Indians.com reported that on March 24th, the Winnebago Tribal Council, quote, narrowly approved a resolution to change tribal codes to no longer allow LGBTQ people to marry. Siouxland Public Media was not granted access to the video of the meeting at question, but tribal members who watched online say Lemire's assessment was correct.
The council members that helped to vote to ban gay marriage said that we need to move those Shongays outside of our tribe because they do not belong and they do not have any purpose here. Or how the menfolk can imagine 2 women together, but they just can't think of 2 men being together.
School shootings have been an unfortunate trend in America. You've heard it in the news time and time again.
George is on the scene in Florida where another community is in disbelief, shocked by devastating violence.
This video showing students in the classroom running for their lives.
This time, gunfire aimed at elementary school children.
Many remember the assault on Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012. 26 people died, setting off a national conversation about gun control. A conversation that is still ongoing today.
Students, teachers, and parents terrified and scrambling after shots fired on campus.
More recently, gunfire broke out at Oxford High School in Michigan, with a student accused of killing 4 teenagers and hurting 7 others. I met up with a local activist for the organization March for Our Lives. The club brings awareness about gun violence and was launched after a student-led demonstration in Washington, D.C. after a school shooting in Parkland, Florida.
My name is Dominic Eastman. I'm a senior, and I am the March for Our Lives Sioux City co-founder.
What is March for Our Lives exactly?
So March for Our Lives is a student-organized group and we advocate for sensible gun legislation. And we also provide resources in our local community, just educating, and we go out and talk to politicians, and we, try and spread our message across the community.
No more silence and gun violence.
A few dozen people joined in solidarity on the streets of Sioux City for a March for Our Lives gathering. Dominic Eastman helped co-found the local chapter of the organization founded after the school shooting in Parkland, Florida back in 2018. The recent East High graduate started the Sioux City group back in junior high.
It is unfortunate that we have to do stuff like this in order to get people's attention.
The Sioux City Bandits reversed course on a plan to give away the same type of rifle used in a recent school shooting.
That's not what we stand for.
Dave Bernstein of State Steel says his company threatened to pull sponsorship if the team went forward with their promotion during Saturday's game.
I'm a supporter of the Constitution and the Second Amendment for sure, but this has nothing to do with that. This is just insensitive to the killings, the tragedy that happened in Uvalde, Texas.
The superintendent of Siouxland's largest school district says the tragic school shooting in Texas is unfortunately another in a long list of tragedies.
Certainly our hearts go out to those that are impacted, certainly the families, the staff members, all of the other students.
This Sioux City mother, who doesn't feel comfortable using her name or real voice, sent her children to Beyond the Bell.
My husband called a couple days prior just to make sure everything was set up. There was no space for them.
This parent isn't alone. Many took to social media to say they received an email the afternoon before the start of school to say their youngsters were put on a wait list.
The biggest thing is just, the lack of communication.
We understand the frustrations.
Jenna Andrews is program director for Beyond the Bell. who says the program, like other businesses across the country, feels the pinch of short staffing.
What did they call it? The Great Resignation that happened was that last year, we just saw kind of a wave where the workforce is really depleting.
You are listening to The Exchange here on Siouxland Public Media. I'm Mary Hartnett, and I'm here with Sheila Brummer. Today we are, I don't know if we should say commemorating the week where the coronavirus pandemic really hit Iowa 2 years ago. Our guest then and today is Siouxland District Health Director Kevin Green. Hello, Kevin.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
I can't believe it's been 2 years. We had you at the 1 year anniversary. We had you here at the start. We took numerous news conferences that you did with Siouxland District Health. And where have the last 2 years gone? It's just been unbelievable.
I have no idea, because we sat down and started talking about kind of a historical perspective 6 months ago, and we were amazed at the amount of information we didn't necessarily have immediate recall for because of the length of time and just the speed that everything moved. But it's 2 years later.
I can do more. I can learn more. I can learn to speak more fluently, and I feel so good. I feel confident, with myself. I'm from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, and I've been here in the United States for like more than 30 years.
Sonia, Doreen, and Wilson were saved by members of Siouxland Tanzania Education Medical Ministries, or STEM, who witnessed the aftermath of the crash that killed 35. Kevin Negard was one of the group who jumped into action to save the children called the Miracle Kids.
It's so many people saying yes to the opportunity that was happening at that time.
The Miracle Kids graduated from high school in Africa last year and arrived in Sioux City to attend Western Iowa Tech Community College in August. They talked to reporters during a news conference at Mercy One Siouxland, where they received treatment for their extensive injuries, which included more than 20 broken bones.
So I'm really happy to come here and get the education, but also to meet with the people who helped us.
Nobody could think that you can reach this far.
And I'm happy to have people who showed me love.
The strike of a hammer builds enthusiasm for 11-year-old Kim Wynn and her classmates from Girls Inc. of Sioux City.
I never had this toolbox program before, so I'm very excited.
This hands-on learning is also new for Kevin Wookman.
Morning, ladies.
Who usually oversees older students, a majority, 95%, men.
What we teach you today are things that will be used throughout your entire life.
Wookman leads the Apprentice and Building Trades program at Western Iowa Tech Community College in Sioux City, where part of the instruction takes place.
This is something that we don't typically do, but it's really cool because we get to show girls that they can have a place in the trades as well.
Trades like carpentry,
Put your hand up here and you can pull the trigger a little bit more.
Plumbing, electrical, heating and cooling, where 1 day a week for a month, Toolbox teaches the girls,
Pretty cool, huh?
like 11-year-old Araya Walker, these different disciplines.
They're having us screw a nail into wood and then can reverse it. It's kind of hard and your hands get tired after a while, but it's fun.
We want them to be able to know that the furnace filter needs to be changed, or if they drop something down the sink in the trap, they can take the trap off and properly put the trap back on, or clean the aerator on a faucet, such as simple as hanging a picture or doing a flower box project, something that will empower these young ladies in the future to do that.
The program is a hit for others as well, including the adults.
I'm Sarah Larson, and I work at Girls Inc., and I'm working with the Toolbox program this year.
Larson says the lessons match the mindset of the nonprofit organization.
Honestly, it's giving them more tools to use and to be stronger and more confident with themselves.
And you want to make sure it's flat and hit it with all your might.
So it's a great way to have them be a part of that and see different jobs that they could possibly do once they're older.
I'm the only one that I know, unless there are future, like in next semester.
Michelle Voss personifies that tenacity and strength as she finds herself the only female among a group of 50 other welding students, a move she pursued a couple years after high school.
Kind of pushed it off and was like, maybe that's not so much a good idea, just considering that I'm a girl. But I was like, you know what, just got to do it, got to see if you like it, and if you don't, find something different.
And what would be your goal? What would be like something that you would love to do with a welding career?
I would like to travel because I know there's very good money to be made in that.
Varas, a down-to-earth type of person, shares her story of grit with the girls.
So I just kind of was doing my thing for a few years, and then I decided, I need to get my life on track. I need to find a job. I think it's very good. I wish I could have done something like this because I feel like, it's mainly a man's job. And so I feel like that kind of makes women scared to get out there and try something different. But I think it's good, and it, maybe something like this can stay with them. And this is like, hey, you know what? I want to do this for my job when I grow up.
You like to hammer better? Yeah.
Even at a young age, both Kim and Araya have an idea of what they want as adults and how this training fits into that blueprint.
I want to become an architect when I'm older, so I want a little bit of experience before I go off and head out to my work.
I want to be a teacher when I grow up. If the class is learning about engineering and building, then I could teach them.
There you go. That's better.
As students nail their marks this summer,
Nice job.
their mentor, Kevin Wookman, believes in this early education.
The whole goal is to plant the seed at a younger age and show them that the trades can actually be fun.
Fun today, while laying a serious foundation for the future. Classical music meshed with a little rock and roll entertained a different demographic with the Sioux City Symphony Orchestra on Wednesday morning.
It's an incredible experience, life-changing experience for these students.
That's Dr. Richard Steinbach, the symphony CEO, talking about one of the highlights of the orchestra's season, Carnegie Link Up Concerts.
So we have over 6,000 students, 6,000 coming from over 30 different schools to the Orpheum to experience, many for the first time, a live symphony performance. And it's more than just a kids' concert. It's the Carnegie Hall program is actually an integrated curriculum in the schools. So they study the music and they actually play. They learn to play with the orchestra on their recorders.
And play they did. They complimented the professionals and watched, listened, and learned about different instruments and sections.
That's where you really plant the spark, and a student hears the harp or they hear the trumpet, and it puts this little light bulb going on and saying, hey, I might want to do that. I might want to study. And so it's so important, I think, to reach these young. These are 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to really plant that seed early.
The Sioux City Symphony, sowing the seeds of sound for a future generation. The North High Marching Band fine-tuned sounds and steps under the guidance of Pat Tobin.
The beeps in the background is the metronome to help us keep time, to keep our feet in time.
This season brings more than notes and formations for the 97 members of the ensemble.
So this theme is Dia de los Muertos, which is Day of the Dead.
Grace Hodge is part of the color guard.
So we have 3 movements, which means 3 songs, and they're all really pumpy and fun, and our flags are showing the culture in our outfits. And we also have skeleton makeup, which is pretty cool.
And sounds of Mexico filled the gymnasium at Irving Dual Language Elementary School on Friday morning. A high school mariachi band from Denison, Iowa performed, along with dancers from the school's La Perla dance troupe. The gathering was all part of Cultural Day for students and staff, including Celia Rojas, who says the celebration allows children to learn more about their backgrounds and others as well.
A lot of the kids don't know that that is part of their culture because they've always been here in the States or they don't have mariachi background.
Denison, Iowa launched the first high school mariachi band in the state 10 years ago. For Siouxland Public Media News, I'm Sheila Brummer. Have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for listening.
I'm Sydney.
And I'm Isabel.
Reporting Siouxland Public Media weather from the Spalding Park Environmental Sciences Elementary School.
Today in Sioux City, expect partly cloudy skies with a high of 31 and a low of 17.
The Iowa Great Lakes will have windy days with highs around 20 and lows around 10.
Here are a few cold weather tips.
Wear layers of loose-fitting, lightweight, warm clothing.
Wear a hat. Try to stay dry and out of the wind.
Cover your mouth to protect your lungs.
Mittens snug at the wrists are better than gloves.
I'm Sydney.
And I'm Isabel.
For Siouxland Public Media Weather.
This is the LEAD podcast. LEAD stands for Listen, Empower, Act, Develop. I'm host Sheila Brummer, journalist and organizational leadership graduate. This media project would not be complete unless I reached out to my former boss and mentor in the business, Dave Buzik. Buzik is one of the most respected leaders in the business. He has a long list of achievements. It includes being named News Director of the Year by Broadcasting and Cable Magazine. He's received Lifetime Achievement Awards from the Midwest Emmys, the Iowa Broadcast News Association, Midwest Journalism Association. He was the former president of the Radio Television News Directors Association. Dave retired at the end of 2018 after almost 30 years as news director at KCCI in Des Moines. Dave, thank you for saying yes to doing this interview. I'm not really used to interviewing you. I've done, hundreds of interviews. This is the first where I've talked to a former boss.
I'm sure it'll work out just fine, Sheila.
Okay. That's good.
I think I interviewed you on more than one occasion, like before I hired you, that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
it's nice to have you interview me too.
No, I know. And in this whole podcast, I'm trying to figure out what makes a good leader and what kind of tips, people can have if they aspire to be a leader someday. And just first off, what do you think makes for a good leader?
I think a couple of things. Number one, the ability to just treat people the way that you want to be treated. I always thought that life was too short for putting up with jerks, either as a boss or as an employee, and I just didn't want to be that guy. I think most people come to work wanting to do a good job. There are problems, there are issues, but it's like rather than jumping down people's throats, let's just sit down and have an adult conversation about how we can fix a mistake and make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. So I just tried to be a decent person and the kind of person that I wanted to work for, number one. Number two, over-communicate, communicate.
You actually started on air in radio before moving to television as a reporter and then an anchor.
And now, Dave Buzik.
And good evening. Sheila O'Connor sitting in with us tonight for Kevin.
How is that transition going from, someone who's working every day in the newsroom and on tight deadlines to now you're the manager of your coworkers and staff?
Yeah. It was hard. Anytime you stick your head up, it's easier for people to take a shot at you. And there were other people in the newsroom who wanted the job. And so, it took a few years, I think, first of all, I was terrible. I mean, there was nothing in a journalism background that trains you for management. You just have to learn every day. You have to make your mistakes. I went to a lot of workshops on management. I read a lot of management books, and I just really tried to get myself up to speed. I've said that there's nothing in being a reporter. You were a reporter for a long time. I mean, what makes a good reporter? Well, you move fast and you make decisions quickly and you're kind of a smart ass and it's just like you're kind of looking out for number one, and then you become a successful reporter.
And late this afternoon, workmen used a crane to lift the plane onto a truck and move it from this usually quiet neighborhood.
Well, none of those apply to being a manager. You've got to be a fairly decent person. You've got to get other people to do what you need them to do in order for you to be successful. So I have to say, I started out, I was really terrible. I made a lot of dumb mistakes. And so I think over time, I worked at it. And I learned. But it's always a tough transition when you move from the staff into a management position.
Election day is quickly approaching. On November 8th, Iowans will head to the polls to decide local and statewide races. There are 2 women on the ballot for governor, incumbent Republican Kim Reynolds, who is seeking her second term in office, and Democrat Deirdre DeGeer, a small business owner.
Drake University graduate and candidate for Secretary of State in 2018.
Proud of my record. I'm proud of the contrast to what we see coming out of the Biden administration and the fact that Democrats in Iowa want to bring that tax and spend policy, woke ideology, and indoctrination of our children into the state of Iowa.
You know, Iowans are not short of vision. They just need leadership who's willing to turn the lights on for them. This election cycle is not about the R behind our name or the D behind our name, folks.
It has been an interesting evening here at the Woodbury County Courthouse. Election Commissioner Pat Gill joins us once again. He's been telling us tonight kind of the update of the numbers. How do you think today turned out? You said it's been a very low turnout day.
Yeah, it was, disappointed with the turnout. We're down about 7,000 votes. It was pretty much the red wave that people were talking about.
I'm Mary Hartnett, and I'm also here with Sheila Brummer for the program. Today, we're talking about the red wave that hit Iowa in Tuesday's midterm elections. Our guests today are former Woodbury County Republican Party Chair Susan Stewart and the former leader of the Woodbury County Democratic Party, Morningside University Professor of History Greg Gelcher. We'll be talking to them in just a few minutes. Well, Tuesday was a big day for Iowa Republicans. One of the most notable events was the re-election of Governor Kim Reynolds for a second full term in office. She told a crowd of supporters in Des Moines Tuesday night that it was an honor to have the chance to serve Iowans for another term.
And it's even a greater honor to be given the opportunity to serve you for another 4 years.
Democrat Deidre DeGier trailed Reynolds in fundraising and polling throughout the campaign. DeGier said on Tuesday night it's always worth fighting for democracy. And Republicans appear on track to expand their majorities in the Iowa House and Senate following Tuesday's election, reaching numbers not seen in decades. House Speaker Pat Grassley spoke to supporters in Des Moines on election night.
Before tonight, it was 97 of 99 counties that we represented all or parts of. After tonight, that number's 99 of 99 counties.
Republican Randy Feenstra defeated Democratic challenger Ryan Melton in Iowa's 4th congressional district race with more than 2/3 of the vote. And Feenstra was surrounded by his family at the Hull Public Library, his hometown in northwest Iowa. And the congressman expressed gratitude for the chance to serve another term in Washington.
Tonight, Iowans in the 4th district chose results over rhetoric, common sense over turmoil, conservatism over socialism.
And prior to Feenstra's first election and win in 2020, that office was held by Steve King for 9 terms, another Republican, and we will hear from Steve King later on in the show. Now, Greg, that 4th district is such a Republican stronghold. Do you think it's ever possible to have a Democratic candidate win that seat? I know J.D. Schulten came close 4 years ago.
I do think it's possible, but it takes the right candidates on both sides. I mean, J.D. did well because he was the first time because he was running against Steve King. Randy Feenstra is a conservative, but he's not an in-your-face provocateur like Steve King was. Randy Feenstra is sitting down and doing the business of governing. He is a champion for ethanol, so there's just not as much reason to attack him as a do-nothing congressman the way we could go. We were able to go after Steve King.
Susan?
I would pretty much agree that I think Randy is a very workmanlike individual. He started out in the state Senate. He was responsible in a major way for some of the tax bills during his time in the state Senate, so it was not surprising that he would come. And really that his comments, covered a big span of issues that are very important to us.
This week is National Suicide Prevention Week, September 4th through the 10th. It's part of Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Nearly 46,000 people in the United States die by suicide. That was in 2020, and that is about 1 death every 11 minutes, according to the CDC.
Suicide continues to be a leading cause of death in Iowa, particularly among younger Iowans. Suicide is many times more common than homicide and can affect any Iowan, regardless of age, location, or other factors.
It's the second leading cause of death for young people ages 10 to 14 and 25 to 34. And it's the third leading cause of death for those 15 to 24.
So considering all those facts today on The Exchange, we're going to talk about suicide prevention and also how to help those who are left behind when a loved one is taken by suicide. Our guests today are Lashana Moyle and Josh Van Sweden, the hosts of the Awe podcast, produced here on Siouxland Public Media. You can find it at our website, kwit.org, and several podcast platforms.
Super excited to be here and talk about such a compelling subject that affects many, many Iowans and many people around the globe, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know on your podcast you talk a lot about helping people kind of live their best lives, helping them to sort of slow down and be in the moment. And, I think that is probably something that's very helpful if you are having depression issues, because sometimes it's just hard to stop thinking over and over again about the bad things,
Right, and you kind of get stuck in this sort of cycle where you think about the bad things and then more bad things come up, and it's like a sort of a rabbit hole where we keep getting deeper and deeper, and then we get stuck, right? I talk a lot of times about depression or emotions that we entertain are like standing in a puddle of glue. The longer we're there, the harder it gets to get out, right? Because it gets stickier.
Yeah. And I think, going back to the podcast, Josh and I we want to make sure that we are allowing others to really know that being who you are authentically is a huge part of your well-being, and talking about, that negative headspace, if you will, and how it just seems to compound. Everything compounds onto the next. And so that's what we try to do on the Awe podcast.
And what does AWE stand for?
Authenticity, wellness, and empowerment.
Well, we have a short clip that we're going to play now that gives people a sense of what you guys share and kind of the goal that you do in trying to help people who are listening.
Hello, and welcome back to the Awe podcast.
Hello, everybody out there. Today, we're talking about burnout.
Ugh.
I know. It's a big word. It's a huge word. Mm-hmm. It's an umbrella term, I like to call these, because underneath this umbrella is a bunch of symptoms.
Bunch.
Right? And those are the clues that should cue us in to like, hey, I'm burned out. I need to take care of myself.
That was just a short clip from the Awe podcast. Joining us today are the hosts of the podcast. We have on the exchange Lashana Moyle and Josh Van Sweden, and you guys have been talking about burnout there, how to avoid it. And that's just one of the many different topics that you guys discuss to help bring awareness to mental health issues and to improve lives.
You talk with a lot of young people. I mean, how much of an issue is depression among, say, college-age kids that you talk to?
I would say it's a very, very large issue. And, Josh and I both have spoken to students, and it seems that we've both experienced just an increase in depression with college-age students and, of course, suicidal ideation within the last year. And I think, he and I often talk about how we associate this to the pandemic and how that really plays into students' frame of mind.
Kelsey, I feel like we were destined to interview our guest today.
Maybe it could just be good timing or even just luck.
Well, as good luck would have it, we have the incredible opportunity to talk with Emily St. John Mandel today.
Emily St. John Mandel is the author of 6 novels, including The Glass Hotel, which was selected by President Barack Obama as one of his favorite books of 2020, and Station 11, which was a finalist for a National Book Award and the Penn Faulkner Award, and won the 2015 Arthur C. Clarke Award, among other honors. Station 11 has been translated into 33 languages and was recently released as a limited series on HBO Max. Her latest novel, Sea of Tranquility, will be released April 5th. She lives in New York City with her husband and daughter. And for all the librarians out there, I love this part of your bio. Emily's middle name is St. John, so the books go under M. Welcome to the first 50 pages, Emily.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we are not going to ask you what it's like to be the author of a pandemic novel during a pandemic.
But you read Sea of Tranquility.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for anyone who hasn't read Station 11, it is a compelling, lyrical, character-driven, non-linear, haunting, moving, and suspenseful literary science fiction novel published in 2014 that happens to take place around a pandemic apocalypse. But here we are, 8 years and a global pandemic after Station 11 was published. And there is this interesting mix now of readers, those who read the novel before and those who are reading this book now, experiencing it through a different lens of this current time. And those readers who are going back to reread it, and for really everyone, it's resonating in a very emotional way with readers. So I guess my question, if I can get to my question, do you pay attention to how readers react to your novels? Or once it's out in the world, do you have to let it go?
You know, a little bit of both, honestly. I do pay attention because I'm kind of intermittently on Twitter. You know, I'll leave for months and then come back for a few weeks and then remember why I left and leave again.
Yeah.
So I do see those reactions.
This is Michael Maxwell with the Sioux City Public Library, and you're listening to Check It Out. Today, I am recommending We Are Each Other's Harvest, celebrating African American farmers, land, and legacy.
Sioux City Ghosts. Look, it's hard to take a ball team seriously if the bunch comes out in the diamond with uniforms that say, Whiting's Cleaners. We clean everything but fish. But then when the Sioux City Ghosts took the field, nobody expected anything serious except seriously uncommon softball talent. Let's just say it this way. The Sioux City Ghosts became a phenom on half the sandlots in the country. Once they played a game in a pasture, lots of messy base-like pies beneath their shoes. Maybe 50 fans were watching just off the baselines. Seriously. No matter. Frank Papa Be Kind Williams, one of the old-timers, once told a reporter that 50 fans or 50,000 riding the bleachers made no difference to the guys. What they loved to do was play ball and have fun, no matter if they stepped on or in the wrong base. And fans came to roar with laughter. Sioux City, born and reared, the Ghosts picked up games with only the best local teams, but never let what happened on the field get too demanding or serious. One of their most beloved shticks was shadow ball, which meant they're playing a couple of innings without the ball, acting as if it was there just the same every last player in pantomime, sometimes even in slow motion. Fans, and there were many, went entirely bananas if they weren't laughing the moment they sat down already. Some people called them the Globetrotters of softball, so Blame Antic was their show. Now, let's be clear here. The Ghosts were splendidly multi-talented. For a time pre-Depression, come December, they simply switched sports, went inside and took the court as a basketball team. And you think that's something? There's more. More than occasionally, and much to the delight of awestruck fans, they break into song. Why not? People loved a good male chorus. You couldn't be a ghost and be married. Traveling was the pits on marriages, after all. And of course, you had to be African American. The Ghosts had no traveling patsies like the Globetrotters either. They made a habit out of playing the best softball teams wherever they went. How'd they do? I thought you'd never ask. In somewhere close to 20 years of ball games, they took it on the chin 100 times. But they won more than 2,000 games against really good teams.
Welcome to Welcome Sit Stay on this lovely afternoon. I'm Gretchen Gondek in dialogue with Deanna Jarvis from Noah's Hope. You have a very energetic 3-month-old pure black lab pup. He is named Salix, and he has a lot of energy.
He does have a lot of energy. He will need someone that will exercise him and someone that will train him. He's super smart, so put that brain to use and get him trained properly.
What kind of situation did Salix come from?
Salix came from a impulse purchase from a breeder, was no longer welcome in the rental situation that they were living in.
That'd be a really good thing to check out ahead of time.
You would think so.
Yeah.